he will be brought to justice so the community can heal.
We start with breaking news tonight and a strong warning for Travis Decker as a manhunt for the triple murder suspect stretches into its 12th day.
On May 30th, 2025, three sisters, Paityn, 9, Evelyn, 8, and Olivia, 5, vanished during a scheduled visit with their father, Travis Decker, a former veteran who had served in Afghanistan. It was an ordinary afternoon in the state of Washington. The soft rays of the late sun filtered through the trees in a quiet local park where the children had just been handed over to their father. No one could have imagined that just a few hours later, all contact with the girls would abruptly cease. From that moment on, there were no more laughs, no more voices, not a single sign that the children were still alive. 4 days later, the unimaginable happened. The bodies of all three girls were discovered near a remote campsite deep in the Wenatchee Mountains. Their hands were tied with zip ties, their heads covered with plastic bags. The scene was so gruesome, so chilling, that even seasoned investigators were shaken to the core. Nearby, Travis's pickup truck was found abandoned, stained with blood. But there was no trace of a suspect, no suicide note, no confession call, no explanation, nothing. Travis Decker, once commended by the military for his survival skills and mastery of terrain, had vanished into the wilderness as if he had been planning this escape for years. From a weekend father with visitation rights, he was now the subject of a nationwide manhunt. But as clues began to emerge, a chilling question surfaced. Was this truly a spontaneous act of madness, or a meticulously premeditated crime? Speculation exploded. That Travis had planned to flee across the border into Canada, that he had searched suspicious keywords online, that perhaps, just perhaps, the girls had witnessed something no one dared to speak about. And from there, public opinion began to fracture. Was this the work of a lone psychopath? Or the final chapter of a family tragedy ignored for too long by the legal system, by society, and by those closest to them? Travis Decker was born in 1992 in the state of Wisconsin, raised in a middle-class family. He was often described as quiet, disciplined, and introverted. After graduating high school, he enlisted in the U.S. Army in 2013, and just a year later, was recruited into the 75th Ranger Regiment, one of the most elite units in the American military. Over the course of 8 years of service, Travis was deployed to Afghanistan, taking part in high-risk missions and receiving extensive training in survival, stealth, and special operations tactics. Those who worked alongside him described Travis as a cold, calculated soldier, someone who rarely spoke, but who could endure extreme conditions and always kept control of every situation on his own terms. After leaving the military in 2021, Travis withdrew further into himself. He spent long periods camping alone in the wilderness, living off-grid for weeks at a time, almost entirely cut off from the modern world. He had no presence on social media, kept no close friendships, and had no official psychological record, yet displayed a clear pattern of control-driven behavior and social withdrawal. The very skills he had once learned to survive war zones had now become a dangerous advantage, one that, investigators later admitted, made him nearly impossible to track. Travis knew how to disappear, and he knew how to leave behind nothing. It was as if the wilderness itself was his accomplice. But the cracks in Travis's life didn't begin with his retreat into the woods. They started long before, in the home he once shared. In 2023, Travis's marriage to his ex-wife Whitney collapsed under growing tension. Divorce records reveal that Whitney had previously filed a motion to restrict overnight custody, citing deep concerns over Travis's mental stability. She had warned that he showed signs of depression, paranoia, and occasional loss of control. And yet, despite the red flags, the court had still granted Travis weekend visitation rights with his 3 daughters. No one could have imagined that this very decision would pave the way for a tragedy beyond comprehension. On the afternoon of May 30th, 2025, the 3 young girls, Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia, were dropped off by their mother at a suburban meeting point in Chelan County for their scheduled weekend visitation with their father. At exactly 5 p.m., Travis Decker arrived on time, picking them up in his white 2017 Ford F-150 pickup truck. That moment, in broad daylight, under a quiet Washington sky, would be the last time Whitney, their mother, ever saw her daughters alive. By 8 p.m. that evening, Whitney began to feel uneasy. Travis wasn't responding to messages. There were no calls, no check-ins. More disturbingly, no one in the area had seen the girls since. Travis was usually punctual and communicative when it came to custody drop-offs, so this total silence was deeply alarming. Whitney quickly contacted Chelan County authorities, requesting an urgent welfare check and asking for an Amber Alert to be issued. But her request was denied. Police cited insufficient criteria to activate a statewide alert, claiming there was no clear evidence of an abduction, nor a confirmed threat to the children's lives. This delay would soon become the center of intense public outrage. In those critical early hours, when clues were still fresh and a rescue might still have been possible, bureaucracy stood in the way of action. Supporters of the grieving family would later refer to this as the 3 fateful hours, the window where the system chose to wait instead of act. 2 days later, on June 1st, Travis's truck was located at Rock Island Campground, a remote forested area near Leavenworth, Washington. The vehicle was locked, no signs of forced entry, but inside, investigators found scattered children's belongings, toys, a blanket, snack wrappers. Nearby, they discovered small footprints in the damp soil, drag marks, and curled up in the bushes off a nearby trail, a husky dog, later confirmed to be the Decker family pet, still alive but visibly shaken. Travis was nowhere to be found. No one had seen him leave the area. There were no security cameras, no cell signal, and no trace of another vehicle. Once again, it was as if he had vanished into the woods, a ghost in the trees. But with the growing evidence around the abandoned truck, one terrifying reality began to take shape for Whitney. Her children were gone, and they weren't coming back. On the morning of June 2nd, 2025, just a few steps away from where Travis Decker's pickup truck had been abandoned, authorities made a heartbreaking discovery. The bodies of Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia were found lying motionless beneath a patch of low brush, buried beneath a thick blanket of dry forest leaves. The scene was almost too painful to witness. All 3 girls had their hands bound tightly with white plastic zip ties. Their heads were covered with transparent plastic bags secured around their necks with tape. There were no stab wounds, no blunt force trauma, no signs of struggle. And yet, they had all stopped breathing. Preliminary forensic reports confirmed the cause of death. Asphyxiation, each girl suffocated slowly, their airways sealed off for a prolonged period. These little girls, just 9, 8, and 5 years old, never had a chance to run. Not a single scream for help was heard. This led investigators to suspect that the children may have been tricked or even psychologically subdued before they were killed. Everything at the scene pointed to one chilling conclusion. This was not a spontaneous act. It was planned, precise, and executed in total silence. Crime scene technicians also discovered traces of adult male blood near the base of a tree less than 10 meters from where the bodies were found. There were also animal bloodstains, likely from the family's dog, a white-haired husky that Travis had been deeply attached to. Miraculously, that same dog had been found alive, shivering in the bushes when rescue teams arrived. It was turned over to a local humane society for care, and became, in a tragic twist, the only surviving witness to a nightmare no one could have foreseen. 2 additional human blood samples were found inside the bed of Travis's truck, one smeared along the edge of the door, another soaked into the fabric lining behind the rear seats. While police withheld the DNA details, they confirmed both belonged to an adult male, most likely Travis Decker. But this revelation only raised more questions. Where did the injury come from? Was it the result of a struggle? A mistake? Or the sign of a suicide attempt that never came to pass? The deeper investigators looked, the more disturbing the scene became. These 3 girls did not die there by accident. Someone brought them, someone with both the means and the motive. And that person was still out there. Immediately after the bodies of the three young girls were discovered, the search for Travis Decker escalated into a full-scale state and federal manhunt. There was no longer any doubt. The primary suspect was the same man once entrusted with weekend custody, now the target of the largest manhunt in Washington state in over a decade. Chelan County Police worked in close coordination with the State Patrol, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, the Washington State Sheriff's Department, and the U.S. Marshals Special Fugitive Task Force. Even a small unit from the National Guard was deployed deep into the wilderness to aid the search. But the greatest obstacle wasn't just the rugged terrain, it was Travis Decker himself. This wasn't an ordinary fugitive. He was a man with advanced military experience, including specialized training in field survival, skills honed through years of elite service. From setting up covert campsites to hunting for food, moving without leaving tracks, and even evading drone surveillance, Travis had become a kind of ghost in the forest, a battlefield shadow who knew how to disappear. Experts believed he could survive for weeks without resupply, relying only on spring water and foraged food. The search effort was centered along the Enchantments mountain range, a steep, unforgiving area with virtually no cell service. Specific zones like Ingalls Creek, Valley High, and the Wenatchee River Trail Network were designated as high-priority sweep areas. On June 4th, a group of hikers reported seeing a man matching his description. Thick beard, camouflage clothing, black backpack, moving quickly along a trail near 8 Mile Lake. When they called out to him, he didn't respond. Instead, he turned and bolted toward the mountains. The sighting triggered a 48-hour high-intensity search, but ultimately led to no confirmed results. Meanwhile, law enforcement issued continuous public safety alerts, urging residents living near the forests to keep their doors locked at all times, leave porch lights on overnight, and report any unfamiliar individuals or suspicious movement near their homes, barns, or on security camera footage. "This is an armed and dangerous suspect. Do not approach under any circumstances," read a warning from the Chelan County Sheriff's Office. To encourage tips, authorities offered a $20,000 reward for any information that would lead to Travis Decker's capture. On social media, local Wenatchee communities sprang into action, sharing footage from neighborhood cameras, forming volunteer patrol groups along the forest edge, and monitoring rural paths with renewed urgency. From an unknown name, Travis Decker had become a national nightmare, a symbol of loss, horror, and unanswered questions. A man once trusted as a father now haunted the collective conscience of a shaken community. And one agonizing question still echoed everywhere. How does a father vanish after murdering his 3 daughters with his own hands? The deeper investigators dug into the case, the more they uncovered disturbing layers that made it clear this was never just a spontaneous outburst. It had the signs of something far more deliberate. After retrieving data from Travis Decker's personal computer and mobile phone, along with backups from cloud platforms and synced apps, investigators discovered a weeks-long pattern of deeply alarming online searches. Travis had been researching in detail how to illegally cross into Canada, including little-known border routes with limited surveillance, entry laws, and even methods to wipe electronic footprints. He looked up queries like how to survive in the woods for 90 days, how to hunt without a gun, and non-toxic wild food. All of this led authorities to one inescapable theory. This wasn't a moment of panic. It was a plan. A long-term methodical operation with a final goal, escape across the border and complete disappearance. But then came the haunting question. Why? What was Travis afraid of? And what twisted logic made him believe he had to kill all 3 of his daughters before he vanished? At the campsite where the bodies were discovered, forensics found more than just blood and plastic bags. Investigators recovered some of Travis's personal gear, a black tactical backpack, 2 water bottles, a multi-tool knife, and a notebook filled with scattered notes, containing rough timestamps, GPS coordinates, and cryptic phrases written in basic code. There was also blood inside the truck bed, later confirmed to be male and a match for Travis's DNA, suggesting he may have been injured either during the murders or while fleeing. But what truly confounded investigators were several inconsistencies at the scene. There were no drag marks on the ground, yet the girl's clothing was clean. unstained by mud or forest debris. The surrounding grass hadn't been significantly disturbed. These details made it increasingly hard to believe that the girls had been killed exactly where they were found. And then came a chilling discovery. Some of the items in Travis's bag contained fingerprints that didn't match him or any of his family members. This begged a new, urgent question. Was someone helping him? Was there a second person out there, in the woods, who assisted in setting the scene or hiding the truth? This was no longer just speculation. If an accomplice existed, this wasn't just a case of domestic violence. It was the sign of something far more coordinated. And if that's true, then justice isn't just about capturing Travis Decker. It's about unmasking a network that helped him run. From a legal standpoint, Chelan County prosecutors have officially charged Travis Decker with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 3 counts of child abduction, and 1 count of unlawfully transporting minors across jurisdictional lines. Meanwhile, forensic teams are continuing to analyze every trace of DNA, every biological sample, and every fingerprint found at the scene and inside the truck. Several samples have been sent to federal crime labs with advanced decoding technologies, searching for proof that a second actor may have been involved. As of now, no one can say for certain that Travis acted alone. But if someone did help him slip through the cracks, then this case won't end with a grieving family. It will unravel into a much larger chain of indictments, pulling in people who once believed they were outside the story. And now, they may find themselves at the very heart of a coming legal storm. The news of the deaths of Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia spread like wildfire across Washington state, and then far beyond. In just hours, what began as a local tragedy transformed into a national nightmare. Across the country, people watched in disbelief, mourning 3 innocent lives lost in the most unthinkable way. In Wenatchee, the hometown of the 3 sisters, hundreds of residents gathered in the central square on the afternoon of June 3rd for a candlelight vigil. White flowers, tiny stuffed animals, tear-streaked handwritten notes, all placed tenderly beneath a photo of the girls in matching pink dresses, smiling like angels. Many young mothers brought their own children. A quiet but powerful statement. We are here with you, and we will not forget. Within days, a GoFundMe page titled Justice for the Sisters, launched by Whitney's friends, raised over $1 million. The donations were more than financial aid. They were a wave of collective grief and outrage. The public wasn't just mourning, they were furious. Furious that a system meant to protect children had failed so completely. Furious that the critical early hours had been lost, sacrificed to cold procedure and bureaucratic hesitation. At the heart of the anger was one glaring fact. The AMBER alert system had not been activated when Whitney first reported her daughters missing. That decision, or lack of one, ignited fierce public debate. Child advocates and legal experts blasted Chelan County Police for being inflexible, choosing legal thresholds over moral urgency. When a mother reports 3 children missing at once, why do we need more proof before acting? Asked an editorial in the Seattle Times. In an age where a text message can reach millions in seconds, the system designed to save missing children still moved like it belonged to another century. For many, that failure wasn't just procedural, it was unforgivable. Across social media, the response was overwhelming. Hundreds of thousands changed their profile photos to 3 glowing candles. Hashtags like #Justice for the Sisters flooded the timeline. The public refused to let this story fade. They demanded answers. They demanded responsibility. And more than anything, they demanded change. Because no more Paityns, no more Evelyns, no more Olivias, no more silence where a voice is needed most. The tragedy of the Decker sisters is not just an isolated case. It is a wake-up call echoing from the very heart of America. It exposes deadly gaps in how we respond to domestic violence, especially when the threat doesn't come from a stranger, but from a father. A man once trusted. A man once legally permitted to see his children. Travis Decker wasn't an ordinary father. He had served in extreme conditions, returning not just with medals, but with deep psychological wounds. His ex-wife had warned the courts. She had requested limits on his overnight access, fearing his emotional instability. But that warning went unheard. The system followed its familiar formula: divide parental rights equally, and assume that having the right to be a father is the same as being capable of being one. The cost? 3 little girls who never got to grow up. The Decker case revealed a painful truth. Our child protection systems are not fast enough, not sensitive enough, and, most of all, not willing to believe the voices of desperate parents. The AMBER alert was never activated in time. Cooperation between local, state, and federal agencies was initially slowed by rigid protocols. A single phone call, one that might have saved 3 young lives, wasn't made simply because someone decided there wasn't enough evidence to worry. These failures don't just need acknowledgement. They demand to be fixed at the root. In any civilized society, protecting a child's life must come first, before bureaucratic steps, before political discomfort, before protocol. Every minute of delay could mean the loss of a life, and every ignored warning pushes us closer to the next tragedy. This case cannot be forgotten. We cannot stay silent in the face of innocent children dying. We cannot let justice be delayed simply because a killer knew how to vanish. We, as citizens, as parents, as human beings, must speak out. For justice, for truth, and for the children still out there who need protection before it's too late. From that quiet afternoon on May 30th, when 3 little girls were handed over to their father and disappeared without a trace, to that harrowing morning on June 2nd, when their lifeless bodies were found in the forest, those few days marked a timeline of tragedy, of ignored warnings, and of delayed justice. The crime scene, the digital footprints, the massive federal manhunt, and the public's outrage painted a picture both painful and undeniable. This wasn't just a murder. It was a collective failure, of systems and of people. Travis Decker remains at large, but truth cannot stay hidden forever. Accountability doesn't end with the perpetrator. It belongs to all of us, the community, the government, and everyone who had a chance to stop this, and didn't. Paityn, Evelyn, and Olivia will never come back. But we can make sure their deaths weren't meaningless. We can turn grief into action, and silence into reform. If you want to follow us into the depths of these stories to uncover the truth behind every mystery, subscribe to the channel, comment with your thoughts, and share this video to spread awareness. Because justice can't wait any longer.